Welcome to the Road to Dracula Visions Artist Spotlight. All right, and for more information on Dracula Visions, check out the SlampressTomes Facebook page. Click the little button on the top, and you will be invited to enter your email so that we could send you behind-the-scenes information, sketches, a lot of things that you're not going to get anywhere else. So check it out. I am once again joined by Mr. Sam Noir. How you doing, Sam?
Yippee-ki-yay, mother trucker.
Wow.
Wanted to say
wow. All right. So today we have comic illustrator, writer, wrestler, and lead singer of the K-pop band Dreamy Boys, Mr. Andy Belanger. How you doing, Andy?
Hey, what's up, guys? How you doing?
Good. Big day for you. Big week for you. Big month for you.
Big day. Yeah, it's pretty good. Pretty big day. Yeah. Yeah, pretty good. So we launched the Mother Trucker, the cutoff campaign yesterday. So we're in day 2, and yeah, it's pretty amazing. We did it. We hit the goal. Yay! And now we're just gonna keep going. I mean, first day, so we have 30 more days to rock and roll and get this going, because production budget is something around, $10,000, $11,000. So any money I make, but beyond that is actually I get paid to work. So and feed my family and all that fun stuff.
the terrific thing about hitting your stretch goal, your goal in the first day is you get to announce the stretch goals as well. So and you've announced your first stretch goal today.
Yeah, so I knew I wanted this to be a first stretch goal. Masao was trying to talk me out of it. Masao Kobayashi is another guy in my studio that we work together, and he just thought I had too many covers. And with I think I've got like 7, but I really wanted 8 because Vigware out of Tokyo, and I have to, of course, Masao's Japanese. He was born in Japan and was there until he was in high school, and then moved to San Fran. And then moved to Montreal for games. We have to sort of do our correspondence with Vigware in Japanese. So because he lives in Tokyo. So anyway, I had this extra cover, but it wasn't like a nude cover. It was like just his normal cover, and it was so gorgeous. And Masao just kept trying to talk me out of doing it. And today I was just like, you know what? I'm going to make it the first stretch goal at 20. And because I want this cover myself. Like, I just want to see this cover that I posted today and have it in my hand myself. Like, I want it. And my printer, despite it getting crazy more expensive and actually harder to find time to print, they all of a sudden got smashed after COVID. I think every printer did. He gives me a good deal on covers. So, yeah. We're going to do that one. A Vigware Mother Trucker cover for our first stretch goal of 20. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And where does the total stand right now?
I think we're at 15,869 when I checked it.
Very close to 16 grand.
Yeah, we're really close to 16. So I'm pretty confident we'll get to that 20 and I'll get my cover.
For sure. Now let's hop back to the start of your career. How did you get your start in comics? Are you formally trained? Are you self-taught? Where did you learn to create comics?
I think anyone who's really into comic books is mostly self-taught. I would say it's a bit of a Wayne Gretzky thing, whereas Wayne Gretzky, when he was 3 years old, was on skates. I was drawing comic books when I was like 3, 4, 5, and I literally never stopped. And I knew when I was in sort of like grade 7, 8, 9, that's all I wanted to do for a career. Like, I've kind of had like the same idea for a career path since I was a little kid, like 5 years old. I knew I just wanted to draw comic books because it's all I did. I was obsessed with going to the store, like secondhand store, to buy comics. There was like a magazine store in Kitchener-Waterloo where I grew up called KW Books that had just walls and walls of comics. They're finally gone now. But
they were here up until a couple of years ago, weren't they?
Yeah. I went like 2 or 3 years ago, and I think his son took over, and he just unloaded all the comics. So there's nothing there anymore. But I would go there and buy comics all the time, and then out at the comic book stores. But then I went to Sheridan for a sort of like a portfolio review and to get into the school. And my marks were bad from high school because I was sort of a bad kid in high school. I had like low marks in art because it wasn't challenging. It was like doing color wheels and kites and stuff like that. And I really wanted to paint and draw. And so my marks weren't great, but my portfolio was good. So the school really wanted me in there, but they said I needed to go somewhere else to get fundamentals. So I ended up going to college for fine art. And once I got into fine art, I never left. I just was really into painting and sculpture and fine art and art history. And my wife and I spend a lot of time in Italy, and she's a fine art painter. So I'm very much into art as opposed to comic book art. But comic book art is my sort of like, first love. So when I was 24, I think, 23 or 24, I moved downtown Toronto to Little Italy on a street called Grace. And it was a big house with a bunch of roommates, and I started throwing keg parties. And I went to the Comic-Cons back then, and I would rent a 56 Oldsmobile. And instead of having a table at the Comic-Con, I'd drive in with a classic car. And my girlfriend and all her friends would run around with roller skates and sell my comics. It was very like a rockabilly theme. And I think all the raid members at the time, which was like first raid, which was like Chip, Kagan, and Cameron, sort of like saw that, and I started hanging around with them. And Ramon sort of like entered raid. I'd already known Ramon like for a little bit, and then he entered raid, and I entered sort of like right after. So I was in the thing long before sort of like Francis and Marcus and those guys. Scott Hepburn came in pretty early, and Carl Kerschel. And then Carl moved to Montreal, and in 2012, I followed him out here, and that's when we started Lethal Comics.
Now, let's talk about your first major work in comics. It was Friday the 13th for Wildstorm. Can you tell us a bit about that experience?
Yeah, so I'm a big horror buff, like big horror movie buff, and we all went down to San Diego. We all went down to San Diego to go to SDCC, the big show. But beforehand, we all actually went for a job interview at what's the place that does Shrek? My brain is fried from all this.
DreamWorks.
We were at DreamWorks. We went to DreamWorks for a job interview for a movie that became Megamind. And before that, it was going to be all centered around Jack Kirby. So they picked sort of like 6 or 7 of us in the studio to go work there, and we did the interview. But then it fell through. The directors got fired, and they changed the direction of the movie. But like when we were on that trip, right after, we went and visited Wildstorm, and all the boys at Raid were like sort of like looking for work and asking for work. And then when I went into Ben Abernathy's office, who is now the guy who runs all the bad offices in DC right now, his office was just head to toe horror movie stuff because he was running the New Line comics. Back then, DC owned Wildstorm, but they were running New Line. So there was like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th. And
I have all those. Yeah.
yeah, and Nightmare
Yeah.
comics.
Yeah.
And it were like right then we started talking about horror movies, and he's like, "Hey, I got an extra issue or 2 of Friday the 13th. You want it?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!" And that was my first gig in comics, right there. And people still talk about that issue. They still love the art. And I took it very seriously, and I made sure like every page I showed everyone at the studio to get critiques, and it had to be super pro for me. And that was my first comic book that I had printed by one of the big companies, and it was a big thing for me. And people still talk about it.
It got a shout out on the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel, and I actually forgot that was yours. And out of all the, I do recall, out of all the Friday the 13th Wildstorm comics at that point, that was definitely the one that was a standout. That was the one that felt most like Friday the 13th, especially since I think Avatar comics the year prior had the license, and for the first time they had really catered to the gorehound, so it was kind of odd when DC Wildstorm kind of went back to a little more tame. But I do remember yours feeling exactly like how Friday gore and co-eds
yeah. The idea of my work back then was very heavily influenced by Jack Davis and EC Horror Comics. And what was funny about that comic, people would come to me and be like, "Oh, I don't know about that comic. It's not like realistic. It doesn't feel like horror." And I was like, "Did you miss like 30 years of horror comics with like Luke and like, like all the greats? Did you miss that era?" Like, I was like, I'm just sort of like a retro version of those guys. So yeah. And my style's heavily evolved over the years, but that's the way I looked when I first started, when I was at Raid. Yeah.
And your other career highlight coming sort of out of that era, you got to work on Swamp Thing, one of the classic swamp monsters, going back to
Swamp Thing with Scott Snyder for the DC 52. I did 6 pages in the annual, and they were there. It was like the most fun I ever had, and I really got to go hog wild on those pages. Carl inked like some of that stuff with me, but it was like I went bananas on those pages, and they loved it so much. They're like, they got in a situation where Marco Rudy quit the gig to go do Spider-Man.
Right.
Left them. Right. So they hired me, but I had about 2.5 weeks to do a whole issue. And I got the script from Snyder, and Lemire did some of the script, and it was like the climax issue of their DC 52 run.
Oh, their crossover.
World War, and it had like every superhero in it, but they were zombies.
Right.
And I was like, how do you guys expect me to pull this off in 2.5 weeks? And it was during Christmas, so no one was in the offices. Just flying blind, you know what I mean? Just like making art, and it was. But it came out, and like it was good. I got to finally work with those guys, and that was fun. Swamp Thing, that was crazy. Yeah,
fantastic. Now, your other highlight would be Southern Cross.
Yeah. So then in 2015,
Southern Cross.
Yeah. So in 2015, over the last like a bunch of years, I wanted to do something very much that was sort of like early Ridley Scott, Alien, Blade Runner. Like I wanted it to feel like that universe. And I had put together a pitch with Steve Niles. Steve Niles and I were kind of rapping on this idea. I came to him with this idea, and Steve was kind of going over it with me, but he had a bunch of stuff happen. Like his house in Texas got destroyed, and he had to like leave, and it was like super bad. So he ended up quitting after I got the gig. Like I had to hunt Eric down all over the world. I was going to convention after convention, like basically stalking him. And I knew he liked my work because I did Kill Shakespeare for IDW. I did 4 trades of it. And I knew he had told the boys that he wished he had printed that at Image. So I knew he liked my work, but I just couldn't get him in a room. So finally, I was in a comic convention in England, in Leeds, for Thought Bubble, and he was looking at people's art, and I finally got him, and I had a full like presentation, and he was just like, "Yeah, you got it. I'll print this for sure, you and Steve, but we'll do it like this." Then Steve dropped out, and Becky was in my studio at the time, Becky Cloonan, and then she offered to write. So, and then the rest is history. We did a few trades of that, and sold it to NBC Universal to be anime in Japan for Crunchyroll.
Amazing. Now,
Yeah.
the next phase of your career, you became a wrestler in order to write a wrestling comic.
Yeah. So I had a bunch of, when I moved to Montreal is like, I feel like wrestling's as big as hockey here. There's like 10 different federations for wrestling in Montreal.
Yeah.
There's like, and I became friends with like a few guys like Shane Hawk, who was in like the scene and everything. And I was doing posters and T-shirts for fun. I was going to all the live events and partying and yelling at wrestlers. And I just loved the live events so much. And Andrew was like, you're a big guy. Why don't you come train? We're opening a school next month. So it was like me and Flying Frank Milano. And Frank Milano's father was in WWE. And we were like some of the first guys training there. And that was in 2017. And then I dropped out for about 6-8 months. I had a big comic gig at the time. I think I was working on Southern Cross at the time, like another big trade. So I couldn't train too hard. And then I came right back to it. And the whole idea was to do it to write Mother Trucker, so that I understood the language of wrestling, because they have like slang, and it's wrestling is its own language. Not only the moves in the ring and the style of wrestling, like the sport of it, but also like the names for things and the way people treat each other in the industry. It's its own language, and I wanted to learn it in order to make this book. And then I got addicted. Like I take wrestling very seriously now, and performing is some of the most fun thing ever. I've been training for 1.5 years with Speedball Mike Bailey, who is one of the best wrestlers in the world. It's like training with Spider-Man. And I think I'm getting a lot better, I hope.
So are things opening up right now to have shows, or?
We get to have shows at the end of the summer. So end of August into September, we're
Right
allowed
on.
so we have dates. So right now I'm training my ass off in July and August to get back on the shows. But I mean, most guys haven't been training, so I'm actually way ahead of the curve, because I've been wrestling the entire time against arguably one of the best wrestlers in Canada. So Animal's ready to rock. Most other guys,
Nice.
yeah, even if they've been wrestling for 20 years, they're gonna get a rude awakening that 15 months off is rough.
So despite the futuristic sci-fi premise of Mother Trucker, there's a lot of authenticity for wrestling fans and professional wrestlers as well. Have you had a lot of comments from your peers or other wrestling pros?
Not too much, because in Mother Trucker 1, there wasn't a whole ton of wrestling. There was a little bit of wrestling, but like only like 2-3 pages, maybe 4 pages of actual moves. The cutoff that I'm doing now, it has a substantial wrestling match. Like I would say it's got like a 8-page wrestling match. So yeah,
I've already pre-ordered. I'm already on there.
there's a called Gigantomaxia by the guy who did that is probably the greatest wrestling comic I've ever read as a wrestler, because he like gets the beats of it. Like when he into like a German suplex, he knows about the setup foot stance before you get into it, and he like has a panel of the foot sort of like stomping hard on the ground, and you're kind of like, oh yeah, he's totally like getting into like the whole actual move set of each move. And
Right.
The artwork is mind-blowing. That guy draws a German suplex like I've never seen. So that really that book hasn't left my back pocket in since I started Mother Trucker. So I'm obsessed with it. So I mean, that's what I'm going for in this next book. I'm really trying to nail down some stuff. And there's a move that Samoa Joe has called the Muscle Buster, and it's a move. And if you look at my samples that are in the Kickstarter, Mother Trucker does it, and instead of she gets into it a little different than Samoa Joe does. He'll put you on the top rope, but Mother Trucker goes into a bit of a suplex to get her up. But she's a girl; she can get her up there pretty quickly. And instead of calling it the Muscle Buster, it's the Mother Buster. Yeah.
So what finally allowed you to pull the trigger on doing Mother Trucker, which I'll assume is a dream project of yours?
Yeah, I've been writing Mother Trucker for years because I was wrestling, and I got myself into a scenario where I work for TKO, and I'm going to be straight up here. I'm going to spill the tea here for you guys a little bit. I worked for TKO, and they were fabulous. Like one of the best publishers that I've worked for. They treated me like gold. They paid me like gold.
Nice.
They were very hands-on. So they, the best relationship with an editor that I've ever had was Sebastian. And Z, the guy who runs it, is an absolute diamond of a guy. They have a set way. You don't, just because you work for TKO, it's a bit of a one and done with those guys, right? Once you do your book, that's it's like, great, thank you. See you never. So the idea was I was actually going to do more stuff with them, but I was sort of struggling to get work after that. But I'd gone digital, and going digital for me, I felt before like I might have been like a soldier in the movie Predator. You know what I mean? Like I'm like hanging out with one of the guys that gets smoked by the Predator at the beginning. Right. And then when I went digital on the iPad, because we went to Italy and my wife didn't want me bringing all my gear, and I have a lot of gear, went before that tradition. Right. We got the iPad, and all of a sudden it was like I was Captain America with the super soldier serum. I was finally the artist that I wanted to be, that I couldn't be with traditional tools. I'm too heavy-handed. I'm too big. I'm too clumsy. I don't have like a very fine hand for inking. And actually, when I go back and ink traditionally now after being digital, I'm actually a lot better at it than I was before. I'm better with the line weights, but like
the zoom function that has really helped you out in that regard.
But I felt like I was at the height of my powers, doing the best work of my life. I was living in Florence, Italy. I was putting out a ton of work, and no one would hire me. No one. I couldn't get a gig anywhere. So I would say from the time I was in Italy up until it would have been September of 2020. So almost a year and a half, I sent monthly, religiously, samples of Marvel, DC characters, other kind of characters to every publisher. And I knew every editor. I got in there, got editors' names for every department, every editor. Got emails from me once a month with my work and new samples every month. And I could not get hired anywhere. I don't know what was up, but I just couldn't get hired. And then Eric, I talked to Eric at Image, and I was like, can we finish Southern Cross? And he said, no, I want to put you on a book with Warren Ellis. Oh. And like, oh my God, I'm going to do a book with Warren Ellis. And he's like, it's going to be our biggest book next year. Your artwork is going to blow people away, and Warren's going to do it. So New York Comic Con that year, I quit looking for work. I was like, I'm going to do Warren Ellis's next book. And I had meetings with both Eric and Warren when I was there. And it was a done deal. And then, 3 months went by and he didn't write a thing, and I didn't get a job. So I was broke, like super broke. And it was Christmas, and I didn't have money for presents. I didn't have money to pay the rent. I didn't have any money because I was waiting around for Warren Ellis. And now we're like, oh, it was probably good.
But
yeah,
Destiny, man, Destiny.
Went through all my savings, 2 months waiting for him, and then the third month we were totally fried. So then I called Eric and I was like, listen, this is some BS. Like, just let all the writers I've ever worked with all sort of like bail on me and don't do their job. So I was like, let me write and draw Mother Trucker for you. And he just, Eric ghosted me on it. And I was like, you know how good this book is going to be? Like, I've been working on this for 4 or 5 years. So he ghosted me on it, and I sent it around to Black Label because they asked me for stuff, and he was like, we'll never put out a wrestling book ever. And I was like, you have heard of Kinnikuman, like in Japan. Like, Japanese wrestling comics are huge, right? Like, they do really well. And he just couldn't see it. I was like, you do Batman, right? Like, superheroes, like, that's kind of what wrestling is. Is the ring a problem for you? I don't get it. So, so we were dead broke, but video game guys came and saved me that Christmas and gave me like a few gigs right before Christmas and then paid me up front before I did the gigs.
Nice.
Front video game industry. So I got to you know, give presents to my kids and like do that kind of stuff and have a Christmas. And then because of those gigs, I got a huge gig with Behavior doing like basically 5 minutes of animation. And if you know about animation in video games, 5 minutes is like, it's a long time. So for 3 months straight, sort of like, you know, night and day, 7 days a week, 18 hours a day, I was painting and drawing my ass off for the animation. And I was a little burned out, but I made basically what I would in a year, like in that time. So that's when Mother Trucker happened. And we're like, we've got all this money. And like, when that out, there was COVID money. So, right. So
this is going into the pandemic then that you also had the time, I guess, under lockdown.
Yeah. The universe sort of like opened up and was like, we're making it happen for you. Like, here's the money to survive, make Mother Trucker. And like, every day you got to wake up and realize like, and you know, I'm still sending out samples like crazy. No one's hiring me. And I was like, okay, so I guess the deal is that, you know, I'm just meant to make this comic. Like the universe is like literally telling me I have to do this. So I made the comic and we put it out, and the first one went crazy. I remember that first day of my first Kickstarter doing Mother Trucker and hitting like $9 grand in 3 hours, just being like, I've only ever made more than $9,000 on a comic one time in my life. And that was the first issue of Southern Cross. I made probably like $13,000 in royalties. And that was the only time I ever made more than $6,000 on a comic ever. Like ever. So all of a sudden I was making crazy money. My friends, like at the end of the campaign, were like, oh, Andy did it. Like
you set an example. And as a result, Lethal Comics was born, and your studio mates are reaping the benefits as well from your pioneering the road into crowdfunding, right?
Yeah. So now Carrie Nord and Carl Kerschel and I have Lethal Comics, and we're full blast. Carl has like basically axed any of the comic commitments he had before, and he's full blast in Lethal, and Carrie's doing his first book now. And this is the way it's going to go. We're working on building this company, and since we built this company, and a lot of the other comic book companies are all focused on IP and making movies instead of selling comic books and making comic books, it's gotten around. And all of a sudden, like in the last 3 weeks, we have contracts from outside places that aren't our regular things. So we're actually like doing contracts for all kinds of other like entertainment, music, film, tie-in stuff. We like all of a sudden I was getting phone calls from like crazy people you couldn't imagine. Like, who wants to talk to you? So it was like that. So I mean, besides Mother Trucker and the stuff we're doing, we're building a whole like, I remember like probably 3 weeks ago, we're all looking at each other like, I guess we're publishers now. Like, yeah, it's going that direction.
You made it.
So
that's awesome.
It's very exciting.
Really, really happy for you, man.
Well, we have to.
All right. So, we're gonna enter the zone that you just got to make the stuff. So we're gonna get into some of the questions that I've specifically pulled in for you. They're gonna be rapid fire. Would you rather's? All right. So very simple. All right. So number one, would you rather look 20 years older from the neck up or from the neck down?
Neck up, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think I care about what I look like on top? I wear a mask.
That's true. Would you rather? Would you rather run at 100 miles per hour or fly at 10 miles per hour?
Fly.
Fly?
Yeah.
Everybody picks fly. Would you rather live in an amusement park or live at the zoo?
Amusement park.
Yeah?
Yeah.
See, I thought the animal would want to live at the zoo. But...
I love after animals?
That's true.
It's a lot of poop, man.
This is an interesting one as a wrestler. Would you rather always have BO or always smell BO on everybody else?
I'd rather have it. I don't know if you know this about me, but I lost my sense of smell in a car crash when I was a kid.
Oh, is that right?
I don't have a sense of smell. Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe I want to smell it on everybody right now. I want to like have that first experience, like in.
Oh my gosh.
What's that?
Wow.
movie where he loses his sense of smell, and at the end he gets it back, and he's just smelling poop. That John Riley movie where he's meant to be like Johnny Cash. Yeah,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my God. So it'd be like, get over here.
Yeah, I haven't smelled anything maybe ever. I can't remember. Not since the accident.
That's crazy.
9/11.
This was an interesting one. Would you rather end every phone call with "I love you," or accidentally call your partner the wrong name during a fight?
Oh, I'll end every call with "I love you" because I almost do.
Right on.
And
That was an easy one then.
I have no shame telling anyone that. Yeah.
Would you rather only be able to whisper or only be able to shout?
Shout.
Would you rather be constantly itchy or always have a cough?
Always have a cough.
Always have a cough? Okay.
Like you ever like had a rash or like
No.
oh my God.
That's the worst. Would you rather sneeze every time you say hi or have the urge to pee every time you ask a question?
Sneeze.
Sneeze. Would you rather have your hands twice as big or twice as small?
Twice as big.
Yeah. Wrestlers, man. All right.
Your whole body off.
And would you rather have to announce your name every time you enter a room or have to cartwheel out of a room every time?
Oh, announcing your name when you come into a room is the best thing ever.
I knew it.
Probably does it. Probably at home when he walks into your room and his family.
Andy Belanger.
Come back into the living room.
All right, a more serious question. What is your favorite version of Dracula?
You know I'm like a massive horror movie fan.
Yes.
And it's going to sound weird because I love all versions. I love Werner Herzog's version
Okay.
a lot. I love the first two Christopher Lee versions a lot. I love the original Bela Lugosi and the Frank Langella. I love those movies like
Yep.
Death. But straight up, I'm sorry, Gary Oldman is just
All right.
fucking, like,
Yeah. No apologies needed.
Nope, not at all. We're amongst friends.
Yeah.
I know he's not the original. I know he's like the most sort of like in your face of all the Draculas that most people know, but like he's kind of like the Heath Ledger of Dracula. You know what I mean? Like Heath Ledger's Joker or Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. He's kind of that to Dracula.
Yeah. Yeah. He really made it his own for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Got to like so many different kinds of Draculas. I think that also helps, you know, like, oh man. Oh, I love that scene when he's just like in there with Keanu Reeves and he's making fun of him. What devil or witch was ever so great for these days? You know, you're just like, whoa, awesome.
Oh, that is awesome. There's some videos going around right now with some of his I guess setups for his scenes with Winona Ryder.
Yeah.
Have you seen those? Yeah. I was just like
Pissed off, yeah.
It's crazy. Anyway. All right. So, Andy, thank you so much for doing this. Again, congratulations on Mother Trucker. I hope you make all the money. And I'm so happy that you're on Dracula Visions as well. I cannot wait to see your version of Dracula on the page. Thanks again, Sam, for asking the important questions while I asked the nonsense.
And thank Andy for making the comic that I never knew I always wanted.
That's true, eh?
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant stuff, sir.
Nope. Likes wrestling. You want to hear a hilarious story? I was in Texas. I was in Texas from the first MondoCon with my friends, and we were all there because the Mondo guys love wrestling, and we were watching Royal Rumble or something like that. No, SummerSlam. And we're in the offices of Mondo. And me and my buddies are all wearing Zubas and we're wrestling. And I go outside, like I was drinking. Zubas. And Jock was out there, you know, the artist.
Yeah,
Jock.
yeah.
He shook his head and he's like, I don't know what you see in this wrestling stuff. And I was like, you draw Batman. You draw a man in tights all day fighting bad guys. Whether you like it or not, you're into wrestling too.
There is a ton of crossover between the
Absolutely.
genres. There is a ton of crossover for sure. All right, folks. Well, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week for another artist spotlight with one of the artists on Dracula Visions. Take care, everyone, and check out Mother Trucker on Kickstarter right now. Later.
Yeah. Mother Trucker, baby. Thanks, Sam.